Wouldn't it be great if you could protect your brain from Alzheimer's and dementia? So, today we're going to be talking about that. Welcome back to the Crack the Code podcast. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Angie Stone. Angie's life has been touched both professionally and personally by Alzheimer's disease. Watching her clients, grandmother, and most recently her father suffer from this disease made her feel hopeless and angry. She's turned these emotions around and is sharing her hope and light around this topic with the world. So welcome, Angie. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Cora. I'm excited to be with you today as well. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know this is a really important topic to be talking about because it seems to be coming up more and more often. Almost everybody we know has somebody that has been touched by this, and it's so horrible to watch and to witness this. So any tips that we can have around this is going to be really, really handy to have.
Yeah, it really is an epidemic at this point in time that we are experiencing so many people that have Alzheimer's disease. And the interesting thing is that it is projected to almost double by 2050.
Wow.
And so there's absolutely something that is different. There's something that we're doing or not doing that is really causing repeated insults to our brains. And we don't have really any way, like you and I, we don't have any way of understanding that our brain is changing until it's changed to the point where we're forgetting things and people are noticing that we're forgetting things, and by that time we're kind of down the path a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like, oh, my knee hurts today. Let's, take some ibuprofen or, let's go to the doctor and we can fix it. So that's one of the reasons that it's so vitally important that we understand how to take care of this thing that we've been given between our ears.
Totally. So before we kind of delve more into that,
Yeah.
maybe we can get some background. What's your background and how did you kind of get to this point? I know obviously you've had family associated with it, but I'm sure there's more to the story.
There really is. So by profession, initially I was a dental hygienist, and I'm still a licensed dental hygienist. I just don't practice anymore. And that spurred me into my mother-in-law. When she was at the end of her life, she died in a nursing home, likely from dirty teeth. I mean, imagine, right? A hygienist and my mother-in-law's dying from dirty teeth in a nursing home. And so that really put me on a path to figure out why people are dying in nursing homes from dirty teeth. And so I started taking care of people in nursing homes. Then I was called more and more into the Alzheimer's space. I was taking care of the oral health of Alzheimer's people. My dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. His middle sister is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I'm like, oh my gosh, this, what is going on? And I now know through all of my education, I'm a brain longevity specialist. I'm a certified dementia practitioner, which I've got those certifications along the way on this journey, right?
Mm.
And I also know that I have a gene that makes me at a higher risk.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
it's like that's kind of the path, right? It's kind of the path
Yeah.
that got me to be like, oh my goodness, we need to back up the bus and try to prevent these things. And fundamentally, a dental hygienist is put on the earth to prevent things. So it kind of like goes along that same trajectory of what I've always done.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I don't think people realize how important our mouth health is for so many things. I think you just think, oh, you got to go to the dentist to get your teeth cleaned, but you don't realize how much they can tell about your health around your teeth.
Yeah, it's I mean, we could do a whole podcast just
Mm,
about this topic,
mm,
right?
mm.
But basically, so the mouth is the entrance to the body, and it's the window to the body. And things like heart disease are connected to the mouth. If you have an unhealthy mouth, you're more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke. If you have an unhealthy mouth, you're more likely to have diabetes. If you already have diabetes and your mouth is not healthy, as a hygienist, I can't control your diabetes.
Yeah.
And now there is a link, the bacteria that cause periodontal disease, which is the big disease of the mouth, they're getting into our brains and causing havoc in our brains.
Wow.
So see,
So
there's still that
yeah,
hygienist and brain piece.
yeah, it's interesting how that whole process came about for you. So tell me about the brain longevity um, training that you did. Like that just sounds so interesting.
Yeah. So I was like trying to figure out how I could help myself, right? Because at that point I couldn't help my dad anymore. It was too late. So I'm like, okay, so what can I do? And so there's a training called Brain Longevity Specialist that I took, and it really teaches people to understand that we have to do things to keep our brains healthy. We have to do things like we talk about exercise, right? We talk about
Mhm.
exercise like it's this holy grail, which, by the way, it is. I like to call it movement because
Yeah.
I don't like to really exercise, right?
Yeah.
So, getting our movement in, we think it's about staying thin and we think it's about not having too much fat. In all actuality, it's it's more important than that. It's about our brain, right?
Mhm.
And so the brain longevity specialist training just really gave me this whole framework of what things I can do to help my brain stay healthier for the long haul.
Yeah. And maybe you can share some ideas with people because I know, like you say, we really are, in society talking about, how we move, how we eat, because we really have control over that. But there isn't a lot being said about how to keep your brain healthy and to hopefully avoid or make the symptoms less um, big or whatever when you have something like dementia. Like, what can you do?
Yeah. And so the thing is also prevention or pushing it off,
Yeah.
right? Pushing it off as long as we can so that, and this is going to sound terrible, but hopefully our life ends due to something other than Alzheimer's disease, right? So if we can
Hmm.
push it off long enough, um, we maybe don't have to go down that trail. So, and you're right. It's like, unless you're in this space, I mean, I see all kinds of things, right? Coming
Yeah.
across my feed because of, what do they call that? The algorithm,
Algorithm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm seeing all kinds of stuff about brain health, and my husband doesn't see the first thing,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, so it's very different. If you're not paying attention, you're not seeing it. So, there are a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of risk factors. Okay. But one of the biggest things is movement, like we talked about. And
Mhm.
there's very specific reasons that movement helps our brain. And so on days that I don't feel like moving, um, when I think about, oh, the movement is going to help my brain, that's more motivating,
Mhm.
right? Then, oh, I
Yeah.
should just go take a walk.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a purpose behind the walk. And for me, that's taking care of my brain. So when we're getting movement in, um, the blood flow is going to our brain, right? And so we're oxygenating the brain. Oxygen is coming to the brain. We're also increasing something called BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor. And it's something that we have in us innately, and it's kind of like it doesn't we don't get much of it unless we're really oxygenating the brain, right? And
Mm.
we're getting that movement in, and then we get more BDNF, and you can think of it as vitamins for the brain, if you will.
Okay.
So super easy to get vitamins for your brain by moving. And there is research around walking. So we don't have to think, oh, I need a gym membership. Oh,
Mm.
I have to get in the
Mm.
car and go to the gym. No, you don't. 2 miles of walking every day
Okay.
has really been shown to be amazing for brain health. So it's not that hard. And you can break that up. I mean, you don't need to go for a 2 mile stint, right? So maybe you do a mile in the morning and a mile in the night. A mile takes 20 minutes. I mean, some people are
Yeah.
quicker than that, some people a little slower than that, but about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if, like you say, if you break it up, as long as it's kind of done in the day, that's not that much. But it's just doing it. And like I said, I think it's really important to think about the why that you're doing anything. I just finished reading Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and it made me think of that. So it's like everything you do, like, why are you doing it? Not just doing it because the gurus say you should be doing it. It's healthy, but at the end of the day, what do you want your life to look like? I want to live a long time, but I don't want to live a long time unless I'm going to be healthy living the long time.
Yeah, because I'm here to tell you that if you've ever hung around in a nursing home or a memory care unit, um, I don't want to live that way,
No.
right?
Yeah.
I think that if you would go through every care community in the world and say, "Hey, is this the way you want to live?" Absolutely, every one of those people would say, "No, I'd rather be gone." Most of them, right? I know that was true for my father when he still had enough of his cognition. He would tell me, "I
Yeah.
pray every night that I die."
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's sad. And it's sad for both people. I'm sure as they're going through it, when they're still coming in and out of it, once they get past that stage where they don't remember anymore, it's different for them. But the other people that have to go through it, that's a tough one. I'm so sorry to hear
It's
about your dad. That's sad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just not good. And I watched him pass away. I was with him. I was his, right hand and everything. And it's a sad
Yeah.
thing. It's a
Yeah.
sad thing.
Yeah. So tell me how, like you mentioned that that you have the gene
Mhm.
that is for it. How do people find out about that? Because I know other people probably have it in their family and they're curious about that. How do you find
Yeah.
that out?
So there is a gene that we all have. It's called APOE. APOE is the acronym, right? And it stands for allele protein, blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. So,
Yeah.
and if you hear APOE, that is what people are talking about, but it's APOE. But people in the space will say APO. We'll
Yeah.
say APOE.
Yeah.
Okay, they kind of like cut it shorter. And there's with every gene, we get one gene from our mom of each thing and one gene from our dad for each thing. And the APOE has a number attached to it, and that's what will tell us if we're at a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. So you can
Okay.
have a 2 attached, a 3, or a 4, right? And the 2, if you get a 2, right, a 2 from your mom, a 2 from your dad,
Mm,
they think that that's somewhat kind of protective, but not like the Holy Grail, right?
okay.
And if you have a 3 in your sequence, they think that that's pretty much just neutral, not protective, not making you at risk. Um, and when you have a 4, that's where it becomes interesting. Okay. So I have a 3-4. My dad was a 3-4. Our daughter is a 3-4. So we're pretty sure that that 4 is coming from my father's side of the equation. And it's a simple blood test or a cheek swab. So
Okay.
23 and
So
me, if people are doing
yeah.
23 and me, and you get like all of the whole thing, and your genetics and stuff, it will tell you how many copies of a 4 you have. It won't tell you if you have a two or 3. It'll only say, oh, you have 1 copy of a 4 or 2 copies of a 4. Um,
Okay.
and you can ask your doctor to do the APOE blood work. They will be what I found out with my students who are learning to take care of their brains. Doctors can be hesitant to do it. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, it's going to change your life. And it's like, yes, it's going to change my life for the better, knowing. So if you really want it and your doctor pushes back, then I would just push back on your doctor. They're working for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so what other kinds of things can we do once we find out we have that, or even if we don't and we just want to look after ourselves? Like I'm sure nutrition must have a point in this too.
Absolutely, nutrition is a big piece. And just want to back up just a second. So even if we don't have an APOE4, and there's other genetics we can check too, there's a whole list of them. That's like one of the easier ones to have done. Um, just because we don't have that, and just because we don't have a family history of it, we can still get Alzheimer's
Sure.
disease and dementia. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are not scot free if we don't have any family history. So other things that we can do. One of the big things, Cora, is sugar.
Mm,
I mean, we hear that sugar is not good for us, and honest to goodness, sugar raises havoc with our brains. Okay.
yeah.
It just does. And it is very addictive, as we know. The more we eat, the more we want. And it just is in no way, shape, or form good for our
Yeah.
brains, all of this excess sugar. So if I could say one thing about diet, I mean, there's all kinds of things about our eating style, right? that
Mm-hmm.
that we need to look at. But the first thing that I would say on, a podcast that's short is really, really look at the amount of sugar that you're getting into your
Yeah.
diet. We shouldn't have, I think it's like 7 teaspoons of added sugar a day, which is not much when we're looking at all these processed foods that we're eating and all those kinds of things. So that would be my number one thing around eating choices.
Yeah. And that's processed sugar kind of things, like not from fruit and vegetables or anything like that, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the things in our processed food, or if we're having our Rice Krispies in the morning and we're
Yeah.
dumping on 4 tablespoons of sugar to make it taste good, we might have a problem.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, sugar is the culprit for everything. I mean, all the big anti-aging doctor gurus, it's sugar. Everything. If you want to stay younger longer, don't eat sugar. Like that's basically it. So there you go. That's another reason not to have sugar or too much of sugar.
Correct. And if we think about it, right, we think about evolutionarily, how much sugar were our ancestors eating?
Mm,
Like zilch only in berries and whatever they could pick, right?
yeah.
And now we're having all of these diseases. So what is happening to us? What is
Yeah.
happening to us? And a lot of it is the way that the world is feeding us and the choices that we make, how we're feeding ourselves.
Yeah. And do you think it's something to do with that? I know one of my friends, she thinks that her mother-in-law maybe got it because she was big in the days in the 80s when it was the low fat eating, and your brain needs fat, but in good ways, like healthy fats from nuts and seeds and things like that, avocados, right?
You're absolutely right. Extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, things like that are good for our brains. Our brain is the fattiest organ that we have as humans. And so our brain needs fat. And so now, and I was part of that movement,
Hmm.
right? I lived that movement of no fat, and we were all running out to get the no fat stuff, right? Because
Yeah.
we were thinking it was making us fat. And it really did not do our bodies any good, and particularly our brains.
Yeah. Well, and I think they added sugar. I don't know if you remember that Seinfeld episode where they were going every day to the yogurt place and having the low fat yogurt, but they were gaining weight. They were like, what is going on here? And they figured out it was because it tasted so good because it had so much sugar in it.
Right. So take the fat out and add sugar. Beautiful
Yeah.
combination, right? We were so smart.
Yeah. So what have you got? I think you've got a little something on your website that you can share with people if they want to learn more about how to, keep healthy with their brains here.
Yeah, actually, so what I would tell people to do if they're interested in just kind of like getting tips and tricks and looking at some research periodically, seeing some videos that I put out, they can certainly join my Alzheimer's risk reduction Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. That's kind of where I'm sharing all of my stuff. And I do have a freebie that they can get off of my website if they want to go out to my website. It's Angie Stone rdh.com. Okay. And so get a little freebie there about, I believe it's 12 tips or something like that for your brain. Or maybe it's 6 things you didn't know. I'm not sure what I have up there currently, but there's a freebie about brain health. And they can look through my Facebook or my website and see what I'm doing and see how I'm teaching people and things like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Because I mean, it doesn't matter if I mean, obviously the sooner you can start, the better. But if you're getting a little bit older, is it still going to be helpful to make these changes?
Absolutely. And so the brain changes are happening 20 to 30 years, they're saying, before we recognize anything is wrong. Okay. Again, it goes back to our brain is taking insults every day, just like I like to use the knee. Again, going back to the knee, it's like your knees are taking insults through your entire life. But at some point, if you're having knee problems, they're going to start to hurt. And we have time to get some therapy, right? Or eventually, when it gets too bad, we can have our knee replaced and we can go about our life, right?
Yeah.
Our brain is taking insult and injury every day of our life just by living, right? And by the choices that we make. And it's never too late to turn things around and crack the code of brain health.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Angie. This has been so educational, informative. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to get this information. So people, if you're listening and you want more information to learn more, like Angie said, join her group, get her freebie from her website. I'll have all the information in the show notes because it is never too late.